Okay, let's get going. So first of all, I would like you to think about your organization, your team, the business unit, and the whole company. Why do organizations exist in the first place? It's not an easy question to answer. But if you think about it more closely, there are three things that make the company the way it's structured today. Modern companies are built the way they are because you want constant processes, you want reliable results, and you want to repeat those results over and over again. The trouble is that when you want to change something in that system, it becomes really hard because those organizations, those systems were built to suppress creativity and prevent coincidences. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, the companies have been there for quite a while, your company as well, and it has been successful in the past. The trouble is now how to change that. And basically, when you talk about a new mindset, a more agile, more adaptive way of leading your teams and companies, that's basically the desire to free yourself, or the company wants to free itself from those rigid structures. However, you have to accept the way organizations are built, and they are built for a reason. There is no denying of that fact. And what companies usually do when they want to change things, they think about implementing new tools, new methods, and try to change things over that, because that's the way things are learned. That's the way things are done around here. And that, of course, is the easiest way to try to change things, but it's also the weakest. So I would always suggest that we shouldn't hope for tools to change processes and then culture over time. I would recommend doing and going the other way. Although it's very hard, it takes longer, but it is way more impactful on the long run. So think about changing culture, changing the mindset, and experimenting with that would be a great way to start. However, you don't start from scratch. There's always a backpack, a legacy backpack, because your team and yourself have experienced a lot of things in the past. And there are a million excuses not to change. And there's always the wish to start somewhere else, but not with you. And I would like to guide you through the idea of changing with yourself first and then leading by example. And modern leadership is a bit like a turnaround where you have less rules and a few guiding principles that can provide the way. And that's basically what we did back in the kitchen, that you have an experience to draw from. So it is like a roundabout where you know exactly where to go. Those are the principles, but you have way less rules in interaction. And that is more adaptive, that speeds up things. And that's basically what effectuation is all about. And if you recollect, we have talked about what makes entrepreneurs successful. And we've also talked about that it's more something that they apply. It's more like principles that they do over and over again. There is a lot of good news connected to that, because it is not an innate thing. It's something that we can learn and change. That's why we took you to the kitchen and have chosen effectuation as a principle that can be applied in your business life. If you look at a startup for a minute, a startup by definition is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. I didn't say that. The godfather of lean startup said that, Eric Ries. You might as well look into that or if you want more information about that, just give me a ring or drop me a message. I'm happy to provide more info around that. So it is, and that's why looking into startups is so interesting for us, because they are dealing with extreme uncertainty. And if we're now confronted with a crazy VUCA world, we try to do the same. Although our conditions are exactly the opposite, we have a lot of resources at hand, we have a lot of people, we have a lot of power. That's all what a startup wants to gain over time. So basically, they wish to be in your shoes, and maybe you wish the other way around. So let's meet in the middle and look at the 5 principles again. Number 1, or start with your means. And what I mean by that is not that we should wish for, not thrive big, but we need to accept what we have. We need to be aware of what we can do and cannot do and start from there. So it's not about wishing and asking the question of if I only had more resources, more time, more people, more power, if I only were in my boss's shoes, then I could start things. It's putting that away and starting where you are, being aware what you can do, and drive things from there. So it's better to start with the bird in your hand than wish for things that never materialize in the end. Number 2 would be affordable loss, or focusing on the downside risk. And that might seem very counterintuitive, and it is in a way, but the basic idea behind that is it's way better to downsize risk if you focus on things that you can control and not trying to predict an outcome that is very unlikely to materialize in the end. So the idea here is if you focus on what am I willing to risk at that moment, at that time, that can be money, that could be time, that could be reputation, that could be effort, that could be many, many things, then I gain freedom. Because then I have, for that idea, for that amount of time, I don't have to hesitate and think it all over again. And that's something that we can apply also in our business lives. So if you decide you want to change something and you want to dedicate a certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy, and maybe some budget into it, then go for it. And then don't think and hesitate all over it again, and then kill it afterwards. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. We are leading in uncertainty, but that gives you the freedom to react. And it limits your risk because you don't put bets all the time on the scale. Number 3 is if life gives you lemons, make lemonade out of it. You all know this saying, but what is meant by that is leveraging contingencies. It means that you're already knowing that things will not go according to plan. Successful entrepreneurs appreciate that fact and say, well, we start with some idea and then we gain new information, new learnings, and adapt and pivot from there. That things are not going according to plan. And that's not a fact to be disappointed. It's something that we should embrace, that we should welcome, because it might as well lead us to an even better idea or a better outcome in the end. Number 4 would be the patchwork principle, or building successful relationships. Successful entrepreneurs are very good at including partners into their ventures. And it's not about buying from bosses or investors or people that sponsor your project. It's also about people that can help you to thrive and make your venture successful. And the more you lock them in from the start, so they have skin in the game there too, the more likely they will be pursuing and helping you all the way. You could also say if they are in there, they have to stick with it because you made them do it. That is, of course, one way of doing it, but it's also about, building partnerships and buy-ins and stakeholder management and all those things. Think about it not about asking permissions. It's about locking them in, motivating them, and creating some leverage before you even start. Number 5 would be the pilot mode. So the idea of it is way better to be in control than to predict a future that is not going to arrive. Like a pilot, you fly on site and you try to control the situation you're in, the present, and not trying to ruminate about earthquakes or natural disasters, things that could happen down the line. So it is more about staying in the present and reacting and acting proactively on that information that you have, and not trying to overanalyze things and risk management into the future. The future is a nice thing, but it's far away and we cannot control it. So we want to, in leadership, gain control, and that's by focusing on what we've got at the moment. So this is the idea of effectuation, the 5 principles again. And as I told you before, that's why we took you to the kitchen, and kitchen is a beautiful example on how you can apply that. It's the difference between causation and effectuation. So causation, again, is the idea to prepare everything in advance. You have all the ingredients, the perfect setting, you have everything arranged around you, and then you go linearly, step by step, in a causal manner, and then you will end up with a result. Does that sound like a plan that you usually apply in your companies? Probably yes. In many cases, that's the way it is. That's causation, and that's a nice thing if we had everything, but life isn't that way, especially in this crazy 21st century. Things go a little different, and we need to apply a different way, a different mode of operating. And that's effectuation, or in other words, opening the fridge and see what's there and start from there and see what we can implement and invent along the course. So this is the idea of effectuation. And coming back to the main principles, maybe a few learnings in the end that might help you. If you look back at your cooking session, there are a few things that you can apply. And in the attachment, I'll send you a little canvas where you can reflect and apply those things for your own effectuation set, so in your own kitchen. So let's look at what my biggest 5 learnings are when it comes to effectuation in applying it into the business context. First of all, I really would like to emphasize that loss is the only thing that can be defined clearly when you are in an uncertain condition. So what are you willing to lose and invest? And don't regard it as loss, regard it as learning. And if under the bottom line, you come out and understand, I've learned a lot in that situation. Maybe it didn't work out, but I grew. I have a better outcome. I'm a better leader because I tried that. I think that is already a big gain. And apart from that, you can apply a few principles in terms of how much time, energy, and so on you want to put in. And then set yourself a milestone. And if you don't reach that goal, then kill your darling, even if it's the most wonderful idea and project. If it doesn't work and you don't want to put more energy in it, or you don't have more time and money, then kill it. And don't care so much about your reputation. I think that is one bad thing in corporations, that we don't experiment because we continue to proceed projects that we all know that are not going to work. In startup lingo, that is a dead man walking. We all know this not going to work, but we continue because we are scared to lose our face and reputation. Don't worry about that. Think about the learning and then continue and start anew. So that's number 1. The second thing would be look beyond CVs and job profiles. I think there is a lot more you can apply and put in the nutshell. So when you start with your means, think about all the things that you've learned outside your job descriptions, and especially look at your teams. I think HR departments are not very good at knowing what people do in their spare times and what talents they have. And maybe you have more in your resource fridge than you think. It's almost always the case. Could be your colleague that does AI in their spare times. It could be your colleague doing leadership sessions or systemic coaching that could help you to apply here. And if you look in your own fridge, there is a lot more that you could put here on the table. So that's number two, learning number two. Number three is when things go south in transformation projects, it's almost always the touchy-feely stuff that counts. And especially in large corporations, that is not something that we were addressing in the past. It was a lot about achieving things and achievement cultures and so on. And I think the intrapersonal relationships are most crucial when it comes to failing transformational projects. So think about the touchy-feely stuff and think about the little things, especially when it comes to your own behavior. So talk about your vulnerabilities and share your fears and your concerns with others. They will be appreciating it, but you have to step in there first in order for others to open. So don't be afraid of that and try to implement that. Lesson number 4 would be really try to look who do you need to be successful with that project and try to lock in your partners right from the start. It's not about presenting something and then waiting to get the buy-in from stakeholders later on. Turn it the other way around. See what you can do by yourself, but where you need others, and try to get them aboard before you even start and lock them in. So whenever they're motivated, they are included in the thing, they are more likely to support it. And of course, they don't want to lose face, so you can lock them in later on so they don't even have a choice later on, even if they want to step out. That's what you can see in almost every successful startup out there. Just pick your entrepreneur of choice and see how they grew and raised their companies. And they always were very good at saying, I can do this, but I cannot do this. Let's have a partner that helps me in that regard. And then they lock them in. Number 5, last but not least, be very honest about your results. You have to lead by example. You have to step in there first. I told you that before. And think about the results. And if it doesn't work out, just leave it and lead by example. If you don't kill your own projects, if you don't lose face, then nobody else will do it and admit it. So you have the leverage because you're driving it. Think and reflect about your own choices. You're always under observation in your team and your company, and we are all social creatures. So we are always watching what the others are doing. So be careful on many things, that being on time when things start and how you behave. And if you expect others to be on time yourself. If you expect others to put in all your work, then do your homework first. Those are things that are very important. Those tiny little things in the end are the make or break decisions that you can make as a leader. So try to start from there, lead by example, and reflect your own behavior within your teams when you're leading your teams on a regular basis. And then if you did a mistake, admit it, openly communicate it, and then go on and try to make it better. To close the whole thing in a nutshell, I told you in the beginning that modern leadership is kind of like directing through a roundabout with less rules, with less structure, but with a few guiding principles that can really help and have to be applied. Otherwise, we're ending up in chaos. So effectuation is an idea how such principles could work for you. Of course, you have to adapt them to your own style, your own needs, your own environment, your own circumstances. So there is no copy and pasting, but it could be a start. So I would highly encourage you to set your own principles and take it from there. And of course, we here at Shiftschool, we are dealing with that. So if we can be of help, just reach out and ask a few questions. And there is a lot more you can do. Of course, so we don't only work in kitchens. There is a lot more you can do in leadership. And just as a little teaser, or maybe something that you could work on in the future, I give you the 5 Ds in the end that could be of help and when you design your own leadership principles. I think in uncertain times, when you transform things, if you want to innovate, if you want to change things, you need those 5 Ds. And going into the traffic example and the roundabout example, again, you need a directions. You need to get moving. You need to start, and not in theory, but in practice. So it is really important to define that direction, even though you don't know exactly how the outcome is going to look like. And that's something that we've all experienced in the kitchen. When you have set your direction, then you have 4 Ds that could help you with leading and pursuing with that. Start with in the bottom right-hand corner, I think trust, and we've talked a lot about trust in the workshop. Since trust doesn't start with D, I've called it dependability. So trusting each other as a basis and investing in trust in your teams is the foundation for everything. So if you take away hierarchies and more conventional leadership and want to be more faster or more adaptive in things, you have to create and build trust as an investment in the future. If you don't have trust, you cannot lead in an adaptive manner. You cannot take away hierarchies. You need something to put into that gap, and that is trust as a foundation. If you have built trust within your teams, the next step would be diversity or stimulate discourse. Once you trust each other, and I know that you are a good person, a well-intended person, then I can fight with you over the best possible income. So it's not about fighting on a personal level, but we need to have creative discourse, diversity of opinions in order to get the best outcome. And that is true for experimenting in the kitchen as in the office. So diversity is the second D. That leads us to the third one, that is dedication. So you put in your work first. If everybody is involved in the discourse, they are more likely to do their work and dedicate and help out. And I think we have all seen that in the kitchen. And the magic then happens when everybody is dedicated and committed to their work. Something very powerful is happening that empowers you to criticize other people and lead other people. But only if you dedicate yourself, if you put in your work first, you put yourself into a position where you can tell others to do their work as well. And that leads us to the final D, diligence, stay accountable. And the way you can stay accountable and hold others accountable is by putting in your work first. If you come to a meeting and you didn't do what you were expected to do, you're not pointing with fingers at other people and say, well, you should have done that too. And that's also a beautiful thing to prevent the blame game. If you do your work and tell others about it, then you can hold them accountable, and there is no discussion about that. That is a cycle of the 5 Ds. So direction, dependability, diversity, dedication, and diligence are very powerful levers to lead your more adaptive, more agile, more creative team, or it's a new form of leadership. Long story short, there is a lot more content around there. If you want to reach out, you can also check in on our websites and our blogs, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I hope to see you again in the future. There is a lot more to do outside kitchens when it comes to transformative leadership. Good luck with that. Have fun with that. Apply those principles, and I hope you also have more fun in the kitchen in the future. So being a better cook is something that also makes you a better leader. See you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye, and see you there.